Happy Pride Month and welcome back to Have You Tried Not Being a Podcast here on that hashtag show. It's Pride and I'm so excited to be joined by my amazing panel. Hello, Toni Sanchez.
Hey, man.
Hi. Chris is also here.
Sup?
I don't know what's going on.
That's my straight voice.
Oh, okay. I don't know what's happening with my panel. I'm Yael Teagle. We are so excited to be celebrating Pride with you all month long. This episode, we are going to actually be talking about Pride itself. What is Pride? What is the history of Pride? So let's get into it. I'm sure Toni has done the research and wants to tell us about the history of Pride.
Yeah, sure. So, Pride, we have to take it back to Stonewall. Stonewall riots began June 28th, 1969 in downtown Manhattan, New York. And a little bit of background on that is that the cops were not exactly friendly to our community, to the LGBT community. And they would also use extenuating circumstances in order to, implement raids on gay nightclubs and gay bars, basically asserting that not only was homosexuality in certain areas of this country still outlawed, like in actual legislation, but they would also assert that there were illegal activities going on at these establishments. So they would
making up reasons to harass people.
Yeah,
never heard that before.
So unexpected. It's not like police to do that.
What? Shocking. So raids being what they are, it essentially became just an excuse for individuals to just kind of target and brutalize members of the LGBTQ community until Stonewall, where the tide turned. And I don't believe it was the only riot to ever occur at the time, but it certainly was what kind of kicked off this entire movement, or at least as we know it today. So apparently, the story goes that about a handful, I believe anywhere between 6 to 10 police officers tried to raid the Stonewall Inn. The patrons didn't take too kindly to it, and the members of the community didn't take too kindly to it. They ended up actually surrounding the area, surrounding the actual bar, to the point where the cops had to barricade themselves into the inn. I've also seen certain reports that say that some folks actually lit the bar on fire. Backup arrived, they got the cops out and everything, but soon after, we know that some folks actually retaliated against the police and caused a riot that lasted until July 1st. So from June 28th all the way to July 1st. So this was a riot that took place over a course of a few days. And of course, you're going to hear names like Marsha P. Johnson, Sylvia Rivera. The other name escapes me at the moment. I know Yael is going to come in the clutch and tell me who else was there. But there were very pivotal members of the community that actually spearheaded that entire riot. And that's why when you hear now that Pride is a riot, Pride was a protest, that's what they mean. This wasn't just a celebration of, LGBT community. It was people who had just been pushed too far for too long and decided to actually push back.
Right. Yeah. So as Toni said, starts as a riot. How do we get from that to parades and Wells Fargo with their big rainbow flags? Let me tell you. So there's a woman whose name was Brenda Howard. She is known as the Mother of Pride. She was a disabled, kinky, bisexual, polyamorous Jewish sex worker. Those are all very important titles. And it's very important to remember who she was. And she is known for coordinating the first LGBT Pride March in 1970. It was to commemorate a year later what had happened. And she originated the idea of a week-long series of events around the Pride March, which became the genesis of the annual LGBT Pride celebrations that we now hold around the world every June. This woman fought for that. She fought for other legislation. She was part of a bunch of different organizations. And that is a name that I feel like we don't know and don't hear very often. She also co-chaired the leather contingent at the Second National March on Washington for gay and lesbian rights in 1987. So she was a big member of this community and did a lot of amazing things to move it forward.
I always see a lot of confusion regarding whenever people are like, I don't understand what the big deal is around the commodification of Pride, around, why we feel like we always have to criticize Pride. And it's like, well, criticism isn't always a condemnation. Criticism is definitely warranted in this case. When we talked about last week about how Pride has become a very corporate, sanitized celebration as opposed to a demonstration of solidarity a demonstration and assertion of our rights as a community. And it's because it started as an actual riot. And maybe that word has kind of lost its punch, its effectiveness over the years. It's not a cute thing. It's not, a fun, friendly thing with, rainbows and glitter and, joy. We are able to celebrate today because of the struggles that people have gone through. So whenever we do talk about like, oh, we don't know about this aspect of Pride, don't know about that aspect of Pride, it's because we are trying to remember and trying to honor the origins of Pride as opposed to just trying to have a good time and a good party. If we wanted to party, I mean, it's not like we ever need an excuse to party. But I would definitely love it if we as a community would always kind of keep, it close to our hearts that, yeah, Pride did begin as a protest and a commemoration of a protest and a riot.
Yeah, I'm so over people who are like, I don't understand why we have to talk about this. I don't understand, like, there always has to be a problem with something. Yeah, there always is a problem with something. That's like how most of us, we have to live our lives in a way. I don't think you're obligated to have to think about this as much as someone like me does or we do, but don't be that person that's like, well, you also should be lazy and not think about this with me, because otherwise that means you have stick up your ass. Like, excuse the fuck out of me for caring.
Right. I saw this artwork that someone posted on Instagram at Bless the Messy, and it's just a little graph, and the top is what people think Pride is, and it's rainbows and parades, and then it says what Pride actually is, and it's full of different things. It says validating intersections, feeling at home in yourself, protecting trans youth, gender euphoria, surviving hard shit, loving yourself more than needing to be loved by others, feeling free. It's all of these things. Having a community, being valid in the closet is also okay. It's really an important celebration and day of activism. Mm-hmm. It's not just get drunk and wear rainbows.
Yeah, I think that it's important to acknowledge that we are happy that, like, we don't have to be fearful of violence when we go to a Pride march. Like, I think that's a good part of being more of the mainstream, but mainstream also always inevitably flattens something into the more shiny and polished parts.
Right.
And I would also say, oh no, go ahead.
Joy and celebration can be subversive on their own. Mm-hmm. I think that what we have a problem with is when it's co-opted by folks who are outside of the community, like we talked about last week, these corporate sponsors and brands that just want to kind of join the party without actually being part of our community or joining us in the movement.
Yeah, and not even corporate sponsors and brands, but also just like people who are starting to organize parades, like the organizers themselves who also are not of the community, who are doing it for a cash grab.
Yeah, that's so great.
I would also say, although Pride, for some people and in some places, it is a safe space. For a lot of people in a lot of places, there is a risk to go.
Yes.
Being there is a risk. Being near it is a risk. And I think that we have to remember that we live in a big city that has an entire section of the city that is considered the gay area. And a lot of people in a lot of places don't have that.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not that Pride can't be this joyful, happy thing anymore. I just think that we've reached a tipping point where now it's kind of become excessive to the point where people aren't actually observing the history and what we're actually fighting for and still fighting for. We're about to approach an anniversary of a very tragic event on June 12th, a direct attack on the LGBT community. These are things that we're still fighting today. So when it's like, again, when people outside of our community are starting to come in and just kind of want to, and we see this all the time. We have, allies that just want to come to the party. They just want the photo op. And it's like, okay, but what are you doing to actually be a part of our community and support and uphold our community? Or do you just really want to wear your rainbow gear for a day?
What else do you do besides going to a drag queen show and then not honoring that drag queen's physical boundaries? Maybe.
Right.
Touching their hair.
Or don't be the person that is, that we're like, oh, I don't understand why everything has to be so negative. And, oh, why is there something wrong with everyone? Everyone's so sensitive these days. And it's like, no, dude, just educate yourself. And certainly, as you've seen from a couple of weeks ago during our trivia round, I mean, we could definitely stand to educate ourselves, too, on certain areas. But
yeah,
I feel like we're trying, and we're sitting here to talk to each other and to actually, get the word out too, especially on this specific platform. And I definitely feel like as a member of this community, I'm always learning. I'm always trying to educate myself and just trying to have that conversation with myself. And if I do want to have that conversation with somebody else, the last thing I want is just like, oh, why does everything have to be so negative? I'm like, well, then shut up. Just tell me you don't want to be part of this conversation, walk away from me and point me to somebody who does.
I want to talk a little bit about the evolution of the pride flag, because as people probably have noticed this year, I feel like more than ever, the differences in the flags. We do see a lot of places have started to respect that there is more than one label for queer. There are more flags than just a rainbow. And in 2018, a graphic designer named Daniel Quasar, I'm so sorry if I'm butchering that last name, added a 5-color chevron to the classic rainbow flag to place a greater emphasis on inclusion and progression. And I think that that's so beautiful, and it speaks to our community, because our community does continue to grow. I feel like this year specifically, I've seen more on social about people who fall in the asexual spectrum. And that is something that I am not super familiar with. And I really loved learning about this, and that they are often forgotten from pride, from the community. And I feel like we should probably do an episode just about that. And I think it's so interesting. The new flag, new as of 2018, includes brown and black stripes to represent marginalized LGBT communities of color, along with the colors pink, light blue, and white to add the trans pride flag into it. And I think that's so beautiful. And one of the things I love about our community is that we will add letters to our alphabet mafia. And I know a lot of cis straight people have a lot of issues with it, but I love that we keep adding, because we are inclusive, because we want people to be seen and feel recognized. And so the idea that we have this new flag, new again, 2018, but is being used now more than ever, makes me personally very happy.
Yeah, I remember when that flag kind of like hit the internet, and there was just this uproar because people were just like, what is this? And people felt like it was ugly. The colors were clashing. Before it was just a simple rainbow. Now you're just adding things to it. And it just was like, okay, but nobody said that you had to like, you don't have to go and buy this. You don't have to do anything with it. They're literally just giving you another option if you want to actually showcase your pride in a more inclusive way, especially to signify to those, brown and black and trans, members of our community that like, hey, we're including you too. And we're not leaving you out of the equation, because as we've talked about with pride becoming so sanitized, it definitely has leaned more towards white, and definitely white male. Those seem to be the folks that are getting the majority of the attention.
I know.
Tide is turning, I feel, but I always feel like it's like these things like the new updated flag that has definitely brought awareness to that issue. Yeah. So yeah, I definitely I dig the flag. I like it a lot.
Yeah. I really like it too, and I always use it whenever I have the opportunity to. I will say though that like I think there was a point afterward. Like I'm not saying this to say that this flag is not important. It doesn't represent something important, because I obviously understand how it does. But I think the conversation about the colors of that flag, like adding more colors to the flag, did reach a tipping point a little bit after all the arguing on Twitter happened, because I was interviewed for a thing, and like it was like months later and they were still asking me about it. And like I reached a point where I was like, I think it's important what it represents, but like I don't think it's useful for us to spend more of our time like arguing over colors.
Yeah.
That distracts us from the actual issues that the flag is trying to point at. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Add the colors. If you disagree, but agree that we should just add people, then fine. Like, fine. Why are we arguing? Right. Include everybody. Who cares what the flag looks? You know what I mean? Like,
I felt like there was a flag brigade that was going to come like, and take down the rainbow flag that they have hanging. Like, I don't like, and be like, here's your new one.
Yeah, like I don't have the energy to yell at a company or a store that doesn't have like that exact flag. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of the questions that I was getting of like, you know, do you think it's a bad thing if people don't use that flag? I was like, I don't fucking care.
No one cares. We're going, great. This is progress. This is inclusion. And we agree with it. No one's going to hurt you if that's not the one you just bought.
Yeah.
Right. Or I don't think that even when I'm at a pride or a demonstration of some sort and I see somebody carrying a bisexual flag or an asexual flag or something specifically for or whatever community they feel a part of. I don't think for a moment that they're trying to exclude me or somebody else who doesn't fit as a into that category. It's like, no, that's just because they're attaching themselves to something that they feel like, hey, I'm proud of this thing. I'm proud of this part of my identity. Or maybe I just want to support this very specific part of the community.
It's kind of like the unfortunate discussions like around like, social media in relation to social justice, where it's like, oh, this person didn't post about this very specific group struggle. They must not care about it. As like, dude, they're one person. Like, they can't post about everything.
Right.
Yeah. I think this idea that we need to start infighting, that is something to hurt us, not to move us forward. Yes. I want to talk a little bit, speaking of about inclusivity, I want to talk about who belongs at Pride, because over the years, a lot of different groups have found their way there. I would say the straight white women that have bachelorette parties at gay bars maybe don't belong at Pride. I know that this year, there's been a lot more talk than ever about leather representation at Pride and the kink community. And children on the opposite side. How are we all feeling, and where do we feel about these things?
Honestly, fuck your kids. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I understand the value of turning Pride into like a quote unquote family friendly event. But also at the same time, like, the term family friendly has been used as a weapon towards our community for such a long time. Like, I'm not going to bend, and I'm not going to not put on leather if I feel like it, just to make your kids feel better. And also, like, kids are smart. Like, they'll figure it out eventually. So why not like hear it from a relatively safe space like that? Like just because someone's into leather doesn't mean someone's gonna whip their dick out at you, like at your kid or something weird like that.
That said, there's a lot of nudity at Pride, or at least traditionally the Prides I went to had a lot of nudity.
I did not know
just
that.
Just because you brought up whipping out your dick, and I was like, yeah, that's what I'm used to at Pride.
Okay. I actually have never seen that before, but that's because I've stopped going to Pride for a while because of the commodification, and also because standing for 5 hours is not really my idea of fun. I don't know, like, because I want to prioritize us. That's the thing, right? Like, I want us to be able to do whatever we want, because that's the entire point of Pride, is to do whatever we want and to feel like we won't be reprimanded for it, and to feel like we have safety in numbers. But leather, yes. Nudity, I'm not sure about, but that's just me. But, like, what are the motivations around that nudity? Are they, like, I mean, maybe you could tell me, like, is it nudist, or is it part of, like, BDSM? Is it part of leather and kink?
It's both and all. It's about being yourself and just being free. It's like you said, it's about being able to be there and do what you want to, because this is a safe space for you.
As someone who's taken classes on sociology, like, it just really bothers me whenever people use children as like any sort of cudgel against disenfranchised group, because we've seen it so many times before, where it's like, like, remember back then when like men were literally taught to treat women like children. That's a side thing, but I don't know if children need that much protection, to be honest. Like, I think it is okay if they see a naked body. They're not going to become bad people just because they see a naked body.
I agree with you on this. As someone who, my Pride has always been San Francisco Pride. I've actually never been to LA Pride. And at San Francisco Pride, it has always been everyone do what you want, rock out with your cock out, like, have a good time. You have Saturday starts with Dyke March, which is a bunch of topless and nude women in the park. Then we walk over to the Castro, and then it's a party all night, and there's literal nudity all over you. And it's part of it. It's part of the celebration. It's celebrating bodies, celebrating love, celebrating freedom. So the idea that kink and nudity shouldn't be part of Pride is very confusing to me. That said, from what I'm hearing, a lot of the complaints are coming from queer couples with families, queer people with children, and the idea that they want to bring their children to Pride. And I understand that.
Yeah.
But if you didn't have the children, you would still come to Pride and there would still be nudity. So you know what it is, and you've chosen to bring them. It's like showing up to a sex shop and then being shocked that they're selling dildos. Like, you came here.
A penis here?
Right.
In a sex shop? with what you were saying, yeah, like I wonder, I don't know if this is me advocating or thinking about like, oh, maybe this is another way to like neuter and sanitize Pride, but what if there was like, you know, a number, like if it's multiple days, it's like, okay, this day is like everyone can be full out of naked, and then this other day, like this is family friendly, family friendly, and the other one, I'm doing air quotes because like I think family friendly, that term is like so weird and very malleable for conservative straight people, and you know, like a day for the Dyke March, and then the day for
honestly, I think not a day but a section. So
yes,
there was 1 year at Pride, I recall very vividly, there was a section that was gated off with black tarps, and then there were like areas that were, you could see through what was behind the tarp, and in front of this area was a sign that said Fairy Village. I expected dancing gay men with wings. I walked by and happened to look into a peephole, and it was mostly larger men jerking it. And that was what was happening in the Fairy Village. So there are sections that are gated off for that. Why not have a section for the kids and the family at the festivities? Just, this is the family section, the way you have it, I guess, any festival.
I love that. Let's flip the script. Let's be like, no, like kids go over there.
Yeah, let's gate off the children.
Put a bounce house in there, just
yeah, and have whatever you would have to entertain them that doesn't infringe on the rest of us.
Yeah, I would love to be that volunteer that's like, oh, you have kids. All right, you know.
Right this way.
Yeah, you're going that way.
This conversation definitely reminds me of that Lady Bunny clip from the Outlist, where she talks about how it wasn't the conservative gays who just show up to the Pride March, you know, once a year and wear their pink t-shirt or a rainbow t-shirt and then return back to their, you know, regular office day jobs. It was actually drag queens and street people and trans people and people who were outside of the societal norm who actually kickstarted all this off and who were at the forefront of, you know, those important civil rights battles in the 60s and 70s. So this idea that Pride has to be sanitized for the sake of kids, like, first off, if you don't think that it's a family-friendly environment, don't take your family to it. And I know I'm saying that as someone who doesn't have my own children, but that's just how I feel about it. Because, I mean, I even see that same conversation being lauded at sci-fi conventions and fan conventions. And that's nowhere near as sexual an environment as what we're talking about here. So this idea that, one, if we're going to honor, you know, the origins of Pride and of protesting and just the idea of putting people out there in the forefront that make people uncomfortable, I'm all for it. I think that's fantastic. I think as long as everybody is having a nice, safe time, everybody is good and they're safe, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think there are events out there, you know, to your point, you know, where either they have created a section for those types of events where it's like, I remember LA Pride, they have, once they get to their little endpoint and they have their big concert, there's a building off to the side where it's like the BDSM kink crowd that gets to go and congregate and have their little tables set up and they're passing out cards and information and stuff. But it's also like, we just got done talking about gay days at Disney. Like that is specifically an event for gay families. So that way they can actually take their children out there and they can be around other gay. And I know that was created for a completely different purpose, but it's also like, we are now seeing, and we do have the ability to actually host other events that are specifically for these niche subgroups. So if there are enough of these families that want to get together and say like, you know what, we would like to have a family friendly where I don't have to go ahead and explain to my 4-year-old what, you know, a leather daddy is. Like, okay, then go ahead and go through the trouble of organizing that yourself. Nobody's saying that you shouldn't. I just really bristle whenever they're just like, no, you need to change this for our convenience and for our comfort. And it's like,
for the children.
Right, for the kids. Like, then just don't bring them. Don't come. Just bring them to literally anything else, like drag queens.
Find a straight sitter.
Right. Drag queens are reading stories at libraries now. Take them to the public library. Like
also as a legitimate offering, like I also do want to remind, like, you know, parents with, you know, even queer parents with kids that the AIDS cycle usually happens like the same time that Pride marches happen. And so like if you don't want to take them to Pride and because you're scared of, you know, leather daddies or whatever, then like take them to the AIDS cycle. Like it's a great time. I've volunteered for them multiple times, and it's really fun. I actually make more friends at the AIDS cycle than I do at Pride, to be honest.
Yeah, I just don't like this idea that they feel like Pride is the only opportunity to expose their kids to the community that they're a part of as the children of queer families and queer parents. It's like, no, there are other opportunities. You just shouldn't expect that the organizers and the attendants are going to spoon feed a family-friendly experience for your kids, so that way you don't have to have an uncomfortable conversation.
Yeah, I think Chris made a really great point that seeing a nude person is not going to harm your child. Right. I would also say, like, it's not. Literally outside of this country, no one else seems to have as much issue with nudity as we do.
There was a great episode of on WoW Presents with Trixie and Katya where Trixie made a great point saying that, like, this type of stuff, it just feels fake responsible. It just feels like, oh, so, like, you know, because, like, they never saw someone getting hacked with a sword, you know, in this movie, now they're good people. Like, oh, because, like, they never saw a sex scene, that means that they're set for life now.
Right. Yeah. It just, I don't like anything where parents are making demands of a larger group. It's like, you can make your own. If I refuse to believe that, especially in major cities, that there isn't already like a family pride celebration or family, you know, pride march of some sort where the kids can go and they don't, you know, but I just really don't like that idea at all. This idea that we have to exclude people. The only people that should be excluded from pride are people that mean to do our community harm. And if you're just there just to have a good time and just live in your authenticity, like, you should be there.
You know what? We even allow the person on the street corner preaching about how we're all going to hell. Like, we even allow them to attend. So
people can be there. Like, and then
like,
talking about
you're not asking. Are you parents asking for him to get out of here?
Exactly.
All right. Any final thoughts on Pride before we move along?
I enjoy Pride, and I think that for whatever reason that you like to go to Pride, you should do that. You should be responsible, though, if you are a member outside of our community. Ask yourself why you're choosing to go and what you're doing to actually support the community.
And also, if you're also part of the community, don't ask us to change who we are for you.
Yeah, that too. Don't be oppressors during Pride. Like, that's just a weird stance to kind of take.
All right. Let's move along to our new crush of the week. Sometimes here on Have You Tried Not Being a Podcast, we want to tell you who we're crushing on this week. So because it is Pride, I actually am crushing on a couple of WWE wrestlers. One is Sonya Deville, who's the first out lesbian WWE wrestler, and of course her friend and business partner Mandy Rose, and Demandy's Donuts. So they just did a pop-up in LA, and it was donations for donuts. You got some amazing donuts, and all of the money went to GLAAD, which really just made me crush on them even more. Toni, why don't you tell us who you're crushing on this week?
I just looked up Sonya Deville, so I'm just like, oh, look at you. Okay. I actually got to go to Avengers Campus last week, and I cried the whole time because I'm a big weenie. But I found my new crushes, and it is the women who played the Dora Milaje at Avengers Campus. I, even from afar, had a complete total like panic where I was just like, I know they can't hear me, but you shouldn't say anything right now in case they can, and you'll just embarrass yourself, and don't embarrass yourself. They're so pretty. But yeah, those women are so hot. I can't deal with it. I'm sorry.
I like that both of us chose specifically like very strong, badass fighting women. Chris, who's your crush this week?
I technically have a strong fighting women too, just not like actual with, you know, swords and spears. My crush of the week is Robin Thede, who is the creator and head of the Black Lady Sketch Show. I just really admire her. I'm someone who, you know, enjoys making people laugh and tries to entertain people. I can tell that she's worked really, really, really hard for this, because she used to run a late night show for BET, and that got canned even though it was really popular, and, you know, was head writer for a bunch of other late night shows. I think this is really her work paying off, and she does what I want to do. I want to, you know, have my own team or room of people full of people of color, ideally QT BIPOC. I have like a work crush / also like I think she's very pretty.
Awesome. Cool. These are our crushes of the week. Let us know in the comments or reviews wherever you are watching or listening to us who your new crush of the week is. We would love to hear them. Usually we tell you some headlines, but it's Pride Month and I don't want to be depressed, so we're skipping the news today. And if you missed it last episode, we focused on all sorts of brands and the commodification of Pride and where rainbow dollars are being spent. So this week, we want to spotlight some amazing brands that are spending their money on our community. That's what we wanted to focus on. So I want to tell you about quite a few of these. Torrid, who is a plus-size women's fashion brand, is donating 20% of their Celebrate Love collection to GLAAD. Brooks Brothers, who is a menswear company, is donating 100% of the purchase price of their Pride capsule collection to Glisten.
Purchase price?
Yes, 100% of the purchase price to Glisten. Tom's, which is a shoe company that is kind of always doing good, or at least that's what we know them for. I don't want to say whether
tomorrow's going to come out Tom is a bastard.
Someone's going to expose.com them.
Sorry. We are aware that Tom seems to be doing good things. So they're also supporting the LGBTQ plus community year round, providing co-created grants to grassroots organizations like Brave Trails, which is a leadership-focused summer camp for LGBTQ plus youth. Doc Martens is donating $100,000 to the Trevor Project. Kate Spade is donating 20% of sales of their Pride collection to the Trevor Project. And Levi's is sending 100% of the net proceeds of their Pride collection to Outright Action International. So if you want to spend your money on things that you were probably buying anyway, those are some companies that are giving back to the community, which is real nice.
I'll kiss your Doc Martens. Let me kiss your Doc Martens. For every wish I will obey.
By the way, I just want to say, like, Brooks Brothers doing the purchase price, I don't think I've ever seen anybody do that. Purchase price means if you're paying Brooks Brothers $89 for a tie, they are donating the full $89 that you gave to that cashier to that charity. Whereas proceeds mean, like, after they've gone ahead and chipped away at, like, well, that person gets this one and that one gets that. And then once we actually have the actual proceeds, it's a lot less. Yeah. It's a lot less. And depending on their profit margins, it could be considerably less.
I'm just saying, if you're going to buy a Pride collection item, think about where that money's going to.
Exactly.
Yep.
And we do love to spotlight brands here. So let us know what brands you think we should be paying attention to. We would love to spotlight good brands who are doing good things here on the show. That's about it for today's Pride episode. Keeping it real short, but keeping it real prideful. Until next time, Toni, talk to us.
Okay, yeah. So before I actually get to my social media stats, I do want to point out that June 12th, this Saturday, is actually the 5-year anniversary of the Pulse tragedy. I really do hope you guys have had a chance to go over to onepulsefoundation.org. They're having a week-long number of events, some of them virtual, some of them that you can actually tack on to even after the anniversary if you guys want to donate to One Pulse Foundation. They also have a merch shop, so if you are looking for specifically Pride merch that is going to go to a really good and worthwhile charity. That's also one of them. I also want to spotlight one of the charities that I always give to, which is the Zebra Coalition in Orlando, Florida. It's a charity that caters to queer youth, specifically gives them assistance and services, especially if they're combating homelessness as a result of them being thrown out of their homes. Yep. Or if they're in need of medical services, anything they need. They also do LGBT youth housing for those purposes as well. You can find them at Zebra Coalition. They also have an Amazon wish list. So if you ever just want to just do some shopping and throw in some things that they need for their own facilities, you can do that as well. Yeah, but you guys can catch me anywhere and everywhere on all social medias at the Toni Sanchez, Toni with an I, Sanchez with a Z. You can also catch me at the Astonishing X Show, where I geek out about the X-Men. You can catch me on the Fresh Podcast of LA. It's a Will Smith appreciation podcast. You can catch me here.
Awesome. Chris, where are you at these days?
People can find me everywhere on all social media as One Winged Chris. That's one spelled out. People can also find me on the Cloak brand social media, because I just modeled for their new Pride collection, and 10% of the proceeds will be going to the Trevor Project. So you can be sure that it is money well spent. But also, if you don't want to buy anything that's cool, you can just look at how cute I am, because I am rocking some really nice neon pink eyeshadow.
Yeah, you do look really adorable in those photos.
Thank you.
Such a model.
Listen, all of the years that I spent watching America's Next Top Model was preparing me for this moment.
Amazing. You killed it.
Tyra. And also on June 16th, I'm going to be talking with Kate Sanchez and her panel on queer storytelling in manga and anime. So we're going to be talking about yaoi, yuri, and everything related to that. And fan fiction, stuff like that. So it's going to be on the Twitch account for But Why Though?
Perfect. I'm Yael Teagle. I'm everywhere at Yael Teagle. That's YAELTYGIEL. You can find me on Sundays talking about Law and Order Special Victims Unit, the greatest show of all time, on Law and Order S Review. Also Wednesdays discussing Loki and all the other superhero shows on Super Lady Hero Hour. Check those out on YouTube. And that's about it. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We will see you next time. Happy Pride!
Yeah, happy Pride. Woo! Speaking of leather daddies, are you wearing a harness, Chris?
Yeah, I am.
You're so cute. I love it.
The mic blocks it, but I figured that I might as well go a little bit all out for a Pride episode. So.
Sarah, I love it. In and then take us out.